Hey everyone, welcome to my channel. So in this video I'm going to bring together the basics for the behavior interview or leadership interview. So usually for some big tech companies there will be a separate round about behavior or leadership questions. So the underlying logic is to try to use the past behavior to predict your future behavior. So for example, if in a certain situation you perform in this way, and it's very likely for you to do the same if you join this company. So the underlying logic is to see whether your current behavior follow the leadership principle of this company, and whether you're there for the current position you're applying for. Because for the different positions like the entry-level engineers, senior engineers, manager, director, so there are there are different expectations about the different perspective. So for example, like for some entry-level engineers, there may not be like too much of the focus on the technical leadership, but if you're applying for like the technical TL role or the senior level, then that may be a focus. So it depends on the role you're applying for, and the questions may vary, and the expectations may vary. But there are some red flags which we can summarize in this video to hopefully help you in the preparation of your interview. So the first red flag I can think about is if you don't prepare for the interview, then you may struggle to find those storage. You may need to refresh your mind and take some time to think about what happened, what you did. So if you're not well prepared, it's going to be a red flag. So I would suggest you to spend maybe 1 or 2 days to go over the leadership principles of the company. So for example, if you're applying for Amazon or Facebook, so usually on the website there, or shared by the HR, there will be a website listing the different leadership principles, and try to go through that, memorize that, and also think about what kind of the question will be asked about this kind of the leadership principle. And also on the website usually there are some sample questions for you to go through. So first of all, try to go through the leadership principle, and the second, think about what are the potential questions, and the third, have some stories from you, like try to refresh your mind, summarize like a good story you did really well in this kind of the situation. So after you have prepared that, I would suggest you to maybe have like a sheet or a table for different principles. You list the summary about the different stories you have. So try to polish it to make it succinct and also informative, so that you're well prepared. Like when such kind of question is brought up to you, you don't need to spend too much of the time try to memorize old stuff. You just immediately think about the corresponding story, so you're going to go through. So the first red flag I can think about is not prepared. So let's talk about the procedure here. So the procedure usually, the interviewer start with some question, but usually start with something like tell me about the time, blah blah blah. So for example, tell me about the time you hold a different opinion about the design with your peers. So usually the leadership, so the behavior question is something like this. Tell me about the time, or maybe you don't have the behavior, like suppose you're in a certain situation. So for new graduates or for some entry-level engineers, maybe it is like, suppose you're in a certain situation, what would you do? But if you're an experienced engineer, it's usually based on a true story, like the true story you have. So like, tell me about the time when you had a conflict with your peers, something like that. So the first thing I would say is try to still, after giving the question, the thing is to try to clarify. So if you don't understand the question, so for example, if the interviewer asks you about, okay, tell me about a time when you have conflict with others. So who is the others? So is it something like you have a conflict with a certain peer about a design choice, or is it something like you give a presentation about like a big project, but it got pushed back by a couple of the leadership, a couple of the employees. So it's very different stories. So you may ask what kind of stories the interviewer is trying to learn about. So that would be the first thing. So try to clarify the question if you don't know what is the thing to proceed. And the second thing is you try to use a certain pattern to bring up the story. So there is a procedure which is called a star. So usually it's something like, first of all, you talk about the situation to give the interviewer a general background about what happened, what is the situation, and why that is important, why that there is a conflict. So something like that. So it's more like a talk about the situation or talk about the background of the corresponding issue or the corresponding project, whatever. And the second thing is the task. So based on the situation, what is the task? What is the problem you're trying to solve? What is the conflict you're trying to resolve? So to make it clear about this. So until this stage, I think the interviewer is going to have like a pretty good picture about what you're going to talk about next. So maybe it is. So maybe if you're not really confident about this is a good story for you to proceed, you can confirm with the interviewer trying to ask maybe something like, so having said that, is it going to be like a good thing for us to proceed? So usually it would be like okay. And then the next thing is to talk about what is the action you took. So for example, how you resolve the conflict with your peers, what you did, and then the next thing is the result. So for example, after you did this certain action, are both satisfied with the design choice? Did you get a agreement? And are everyone happy? So something like that. So talk about the result, and also maybe there will be some follow-up questions to say, okay, so suppose you're in the same situation in the future, are you going to perform the same, or something like, based on this, what did you really learn from this kind of situation? So it's like, first of all, bring together the situation to help the interviewer understand what it is, and why it is a conflict, why it is important, where there's some pushback, why you deliver the things late, and also the task, what you did, what you're supposed to do, what you're supposed to address, and then the actions you actually take to solve the problem, solve the conflict, to drive the project. And then the next thing is the result. The result is, after you did this, what is the corresponding outcome, and what did you learn, and if you do it next, if the similar thing happens in the future, you're going to do the same. So I find this kind of the procedure is quite a good pattern to follow, because for this one it is going to give the interviewer like a good understanding about the story. So the red flag, I would say here is, if you are not being informative. So when I say not being informative, it's not like you want to spend like 20 minutes talking about the story. So you try to make it informative, but you try to make it succinct. So as long as you deliver enough information for the interviewer to understand it, that's perfectly fine. You just don't need to make the story to be very lengthy. So the expectation from here is usually, so this one is rather so it's not like a very, so it is objective towards the leadership principle, but because there are people involved here, so usually it is based on people's experience. So for example, if you're interviewing with like senior level or manager levels, so usually the people who interview with you have like a higher level than you or about the same level than you. So the expectation usually it is make the interviewer feel satisfied. So this could be sometimes this could be quite difficult because people are different. So if you do the same thing, maybe the person like it or not like it, but for some usually it's for some experienced engineers, they have the feeling because they exactly encounter the same situation. They exactly know what is right, what is wrong, how to perform. So it's mostly based on the interviewer's experience, but I would say if you give a very good answer, for a general principle, it is not going to be like you're not going to it is not like the the interviewer is going to be insane and then they just say okay, you did it wrong. So it's not like that. So usually it is based on the interviewer experience, and if you give a story and the interview feel like okay, in this kind of the situation, maybe I think I would perform in the same way, and based on my past experience I really did perform in this way and it worked really well. So it's something like it is usually based on the interviewer's experience. So, for example, if in a certain situation you have conflict with your peers and you just maybe you stuck there, you don't know how to address the conflict, or maybe you have like a real conflict, real argument with your peer, and people don't feel happy. So that could be like a bad thing. So usually maybe so you need to for this kind of example question, usually you need to make sure that you feel like you work as a team, or maybe or you work as a team, and also you clarify that you're on the same boat with a peer. You're just trying to solve the same problem but just different opinions. We list the pros and cons, talk about the fact, and based on the situation will be the best thing to proceed. So it's just an example. So try to go through the leadership principles. Try to make sure that you don't behave against the leadership principle. So that's the first thing. And also based on your experience, try to make a summary about like a very good story. So if the story is like too weak to justify that, the interviewer may ask you to bring another example. So for each of the leadership principle, try to prepare for I would say 2 of the stories based on the past experience, based on the past projects you lead. Then I would say that would be like a good enough preparation for you to perform the leadership interview or the behavior interview. So that's pretty much it. Let me see if there is anything missing. So yeah, so I think that's most likely it. And also there is another red flag I want to bring up. So if you don't really have like the experience, for example, if you don't have like experience dealing with the customer issue, directly talk with customer, it is okay to say that. So the thing is, don't fake stories. And also the next thing is, so for example, when people ask you some negative questions, so for example, have you ever failed in a project, or have you failed to meet the deadline? So it is not okay. So it is not okay to say, okay, I've never missed a deadline. I've never failed at anything, because no one is perfect. So no one is expecting for you to be a perfect guy to join this company. But rather it's like in a certain situation, they want to learn what is your action item in this kind of situation. So if you say, okay, if you try to be too arrogant in this way, like say, okay, I've never failed, then that may be a red flag, because it's either you don't have like real experience, or maybe it is something like you're trying to be arrogant. And also try to focus on what you did in a certain situation. So for example, if it is a team effort, try to focus on what you did, because in a real interview, it's not like people want to learn what the team did. It's not like they want to learn what the team did for you. It's more like what you did for the team, what you did for the project. So sometimes people may interchange between the I or we, so what we did or what I did. So try to clarify, try to make it a bit more clear to say, okay, this is what I did or this is what the team did. So try to have a clear boundary between you and the rest of the people, because people want to focus on your experience about different situations. So let's see. Okay, so the expectation is to make the interview feel satisfied based on the interviewer's experience. Yeah, so that's pretty much it. And also for different companies, there will be so for example, for Amazon, they have 14 leadership principle, and each round of the interviewer will ask you some leadership questions. But for some other companies like Google, Facebook, there will be only one or two rounds of the interview, focusing on the leadership principles or whatever. So it really depends on the company you're interviewing with, and the weight for the leadership principle can vary, and also your experience, and the position you're applying for can vary, in the interview depending on the position you're applying for. So that's pretty much it about this leadership or behavior interview basics. I hope you enjoy this video. If you have any questions or if you have some other things you want to add, feel free to comment below. So if you like this video, please help subscribe to this channel. I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.